My name's Adriel Perkins. I'm a principal engineer here at Liatrio. And today I'm going to demo for you what a good platform onboarding experience would look like for building new microservices using a starter slash keep going kit. Now, first of all, I want to talk about excitement. It's really important to capitalize on excitement when new engineers get hired at a company for the very first time. It is also important to capitalize on that excitement when they've been tasked with building a new microservice. Happy engineers build happy products for customers that ultimately are happy because they have a good experience. We feel that the optimization for this time to deliver value is under a week. If you can enable an engineer or a technologist to deliver value within 1 week of starting to try to accomplish that goal, they're going to be happy. They're going to be able to accelerate that delivery of value to the customers, and they're going to have a joyous time doing so. Now, for this scenario, we're going to specifically talk about what it would be like if an engineer that already exists at the company is focused on breaking apart a monolithic application. Maybe they've decided they've found a specific area in the monolith that would really benefit from turning it into multiple microservices. So they need to get started quickly on building those services. They need a paved path to production to accelerate the delivery of value. Well, that's maybe not an easy task. Certainly writing all the code from scratch, that can take some time. So the paved path to production requires a certain set of things, a set of capabilities that really will make this experience enjoyable. It needs to provide a starter microservice that actually has instrumentation fundamentals available to it in order to operate in production. It needs to have well-known CI components that include things like security scans, linting, builds that are actually fast, and provide feedback quickly to the engineers. You need repositories that have configurations and settings that match the team requirements. You need the ability to develop locally. You want to be able to natively support your IDE out of the box and have everything needed to be able to write tests effectively, to be able to debug your application locally, and have all of the LSP considerations in place. You also need to version it. It needs to be semantically versioned, and you need to tie those semantic versions to the actual SHA. This is an important aspect for understanding what is actually deployed at any given point in time and whether or not breaking changes are coming into your system. Because of your use of semantic versioning, you should have automated dependency management. That includes for your application being onboarded to the platform, but it also includes all of your libraries and your pipelines that may be shared across the organization that may change outside of the scope of your repository. Of course, you also need to be able to be onboard to the platform. And it needs to be quick. It needs to be a good experience, low overhead, so that you can continue to stay in context and innovate. The platform should include things like well-known secret management that's very easy to adopt, but also very secure. Authentication patterns that are also ensured to be available that you can check policies against. You also want to automatically have your DORA metrics for free and any of the capabilities that go along with those. You want to be able to automatically have good observability telemetry into your system so you can analyze and alert based off of real world interactions. And you want your microservice to be promoted through all the environments very quickly, automatically, with minimal approval. These are core capabilities to having a good paved path to production. Well, what could that look like? This example is a good first iteration, especially for companies that have processes that require change requests and so forth. Lots of processes to go in place. Consider, for example, the scenario we outlined. The first thing that they would want to do is access an IDP, a landing place, an internal developer platform. Now, for the sakes of this demo, we're going to talk about your IDP as Backstage. But realistically, an internal developer portal can be anything. It technically can just simply be a wiki page with some automations laid out. Backstage is an open source option that provides a very good framework for building IDPs. And so that's why we'll talk about it here in this demo. So say your developer goes to the IDP and they realize they need to build this new microservice already. So they can hit the template, they can trigger the app starter kit template, and that template is going to automatically create a repository with the new application and source code already out of the box. This would then trigger, then they could trigger the IDP onboarding template to get that application deployed to dev. Again, an onboarding pull request could be opened, then you could approve it, it would be merged, and it would automatically be deployed to dev. This should be able to be accomplished within the first 30 minutes. And you should have all the fundamental puzzle pieces in place to be able to accelerate this. Now, for a moment, we'll talk about what happens after that, right? The engineer will then be able to go deliver a small batch code changes and have them immediately approved by their teammates when they open a pull request. The CI completes the test run, all the good things that need to be that have to be there. They all get completed successfully, and they can merge it in. Within that 20 minutes to 2 hours of having been pull request reviewed, approved, and merged, they should have a very fast release created. All of the security and automated governance compliance requirements should automatically be vetted against the policies. And then that change should be automatically deployed to dev. It should be picked up as a dependency and immediately deployed. That should happen in 5 to 10 minutes. It should be very quick. From there, let's say they've got their service ready to go and they're happy with it, the state they're in, and they're ready to start to deploy these things to production and ensure changes get to production very quickly. So from there, what they can do is they can, again, go to the IDP, and this time trigger the onboarding template, but select that it goes to production. During this onboarding template, because of maybe some processes that exist within the company, they may have automation in the backend that says when a pull request is opened for production, let's ensure that a corresponding change request is created in our system of record. Now, the approval still only happens at the pull request layer. The team approves the pull request, it gets onboarded, there you go. But it automatically maps and integrates with the change request so that you can still have that audit record for companies and organizations that rely on those things that are not ready to get rid of them yet. This would be a iterative first iteration to accelerating the delivery of value across the board. What would this actually look like in practice? Can it actually work this way? Let's show an example. So here we have Backstage. Backstage is our internal developer portal. What I'm showing here is actually our internal platform that we use. So if I was the new developer who's ready to build a new microservice, I would say, well, hey, I want to create an app. In this case, I'm going to say I want to choose the Golang template because I want to build a Golang microservice. From here, it gives me a form to fill out. So I'll go ahead and fill it out. I'll say, Adriel, hello. We're going to do 4 because this is not the first time I've run through this. We'll go ahead and copy this forward for now, and we'll onboard this to the tag Ollie team. I'm filling out, again, the information here using my real information, and I'm going to get the real channel ID of a bots channel that we use internally where we want our notification sent. Yes, that means that I will get immediately notifications being sent to our channel as it relates to deployments for this microservice. I'm going to click next. Again, I want the repository name to be consistent, so I'll say hello 4. We'll review it. Settings look good. We'll press creation. In just a matter of moments, that starter kit will be rendered. It will be published. It will have the configuration settings on the repository that are necessary for like main branch protection, and it will register it in Backstage. Let's see it. If we go to our repository, we can see here, we actually have that real repository that was just created. As you can see, this is the initial commit of templated code, and we've already got CI actions running in place. We've got things like publishing the tech doc site, building and testing the application, actually compiling the binaries on various different platforms and operating systems to ensure that it is ready to deploy on multiple different architectures. And of course, we've got our linting in place. Now, does this repository, does this starter kit meet the requirements of good capabilities? Yes. Here's why. First of all, it's been onboarded immediately to a tool called Renovate-bot. The key is that it's a dependency manager and it's an automated one. So it already has out of the box dependency management capabilities for this repository. As you can see, I actually already have an issue for this repository that's been created, and it's been opened by a bot. It's called the dependency dashboard. Now, if you observe here, we will see that this repository is now being managed by Renovate, and it's already detected dependencies that exist within it. Talks about GitHub Actions dependencies. It even goes to show you what they are. So these are various different actions. And again, this fundamentally works the same in GitLab. It's even got one that's like a shared workflow across of our organization. It tells us exactly the hash that it has been pinned to. So Renovate-bot can, as new hashes and versions come out, it can automatically adjust and open pull requests so that you can keep your dependencies up to date. This is also true of the various different libraries for the actual source code itself. So it can manage the versions of everything within this repository. If we go back to the source code, we'll also see that documentation already exists, that we'll be able to render this documentation in Backstage into our developer portal. So you have one place you can write your code, but you have many places you can discover it for easy discoverability. I'm not going to talk too much about the code because can get very into the weeds. But I want to call out here that this code is already instrumented. That means it is a REST API service with instrumentation that will emit telemetry out of the box. This is a huge win for developers. Why? Well, it's often been said that instrumentation for the first time is the hardest thing. But once you do it once, you don't really have to do it again. And that's true. Once you get that initial instrumentation out of the way, it then just becomes, as you write your new code, you ensure that you've hooked into that instrumentation and you're thinking about what type of telemetry you're going to send. That is super, super key to being able to be production ready and ensure that your service is resilient. And when it goes down, because things will go down, things break, you will be able to immediately identify and troubleshoot that issue and ensure that your customers are impacted at the very least that they can be. It additionally has various different things that allow you to do quick development locally. So as you can see, I got a VS Code folder. That means my IDE is already set up when you download this repository for the first time to be able to debug this application in the way for any developer who uses this type of IDE. It's also got the shared workflows. As we mentioned, we see them already running, and we already see that a new release has been created with a semantically compliant version. That means that we'll be able to actually manage the onboarding in this application as a versioned dependency. It's also got all the manifests necessary to onboard into Kubernetes and deploy. Okay, great. That's a lot of capabilities that it provides. What does that actually look like if we were to onboard it? Well, let's take a look. If we go back here, we do have some instructions on the next steps for the Go template. So we'll go ahead and make sure that we fill those out and get those taken care of. So I'm going to update the service name and repository name. These settings are very important for hooking into DORA metrics and ensuring that your repository is identified to a particular service. Particular services map to products. Products can have one or more services, but the key is that you identify these as services so that you can actually observe these things. Now, let's go ahead and onboard this to the platform. Okay, with the prereq out of the way, let's go ahead and provide the information for our application to be onboarded into dev. Again, we'll provide the team, the repository name, the environment. In this case, we'll select dev, But if we were onboarding this to prod, we could select prod here. This is the template that you could run more than once. We'll give it a namespace. We'll tell it to create a namespace. This is a Kubernetes construct. We'll give it the name of the application, and then we'll ensure that we point to a versioned URL for it to manage as a dependency and import the manifests. We've reviewed our information. It's going to onboard to the platform. Okay, so above we see a summary of actions that all have green check marks. Fantastic. Okay, so now we're looking at the pull requests for the platform onboarding repository, and we can see a pull request has been opened up by our IDP, by Backstage. As we can see, we've got some various different checks. We've got our pull request labeler, conventional commit checks, and then we're vendoring everything and actually vetting all of the configuration here against policies that have been defined for the platform. This is all happening right out of the box, and this is the approach that we take with regards to platforms. So we can, of course, review the changes that it's made to the pull request, and we can say, hey, does this look good or no? Does it not? Of course, because it is a first time onboarding to the platform, it does require an approval. So I'm going to go ahead and approve it here because this all looks good. Now that it's approved, we'll just enable auto merge so that when all the checks successfully pass, and only if the checks successfully pass, it will automatically be merged into the trunk branch, and the platform will automatically pick that up in GitHub's fashion and deploy it into Argo CD. Okay, look at that. All tests have passed. All vendoring has passed. It has been automatically merged into trunk. Well, can we see it deploy? Absolutely. Let's go ahead and go into Argo CD. Ooh, look at this. Adriel Hello 4 is working on deploying right now. We can see Argo is syncing it in real time. Okay, fantastic. We're starting to see things have been created, resources have been synced and created within the Kubernetes platform, and we're starting to see our deployment take shape of our new microservice. As we can see, the microservices looks to be started up, and of course, the health checks that already were created out of the box successfully detected the application was deployed successfully. Well, does it work? Do we actually know if it works? I mean, it's all green, right? Well, let's go ahead and test it out. You can see here that we have a private route. That means that this route already has a REST API endpoint that is available to hit as long as you are within our network. Let's go ahead and hit the API. Okay, I opened in a new window and I pasted in the route, the domain name, and I added in v1 hello on the end. And I know this because that's what the endpoint was defined as in the code. And as you can see, I get a message back. I get a hello world. Fantastic. It's deployed. It's private. It is secure. Security is out of the box. Now, can we observe it? Because we've deployed it in a starter kit that is actually a keep going kit, right? Operating in production, managing dependencies effectively and automatically. Can I observe it? Absolutely. Let's come in here to our observability SaaS. We're going to go ahead and we're going to look at traces and we're going to explore things. We want to understand if our service is already being instrumented and sending traces to our backend. We'll look for the service name and we want, oh, hey, look at that. Adriel Hello 4. Fantastic. So as you can see, I am already starting to get traces that are instrumented coming from my REST API microservice that was just deployed. This is observability out of the box, but allowing you to do observability as a practice, meaning that you actually are analyzing telemetry effectively and you're making decisions, data-driven decisions for your services, for your products. Instrumentation out of the box via a starter kit. Now, let's just say that I wanted to change some code. Let's say I want to make a new deployment. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. Let's see how fast we can deploy to dev a new change. So we'll go back here. We will edit our file. Let's just go ahead and edit this. And we'll commit it to main because, I'm just a single developer iterating quickly. Let's change the message. Okay, here's the message. Instead of saying hello world, let's make something cooler. Let's go ahead and say automate all the things. That's a better approach, right? All right, we're going to commit it. We're going to actually define this as a feature. So we'll say updated hello response message. We'll go ahead and bypass these rules. Now, as you did see, there were rules. So now we'll go ahead and wait for a new version to be released after all the tests passed. Okay, as you can see, all of the CI workflows and the release publishing of all the artifacts was successfully completed here. Also, you can see that we now have a new version, v.0.2.0. I wonder, how can we promote this to dev? Well, let's look back at our repository where the application is viewed as a dependency. You can see here that a pull request automatically got opened up by our automated dependency manager to bump the version of this to v.0.2.0, and it's already deployed. That's how fast a deployment can get into dev when you're iterating. Now, if we were to go back to the URL, the original one we hit, let's see if the message changed. Okay, it looks like automate all the things is the correct message coming back. Fantastic. We just deployed a change to development. Do you want to onboard this application to production? Why not? Let's get to the production quickly. Let's go back to the template and start from there. Let's go ahead and start over. And this time we'll just change the environment. Let's go ahead and deploy this to production. We'll also change the version because we want to make sure that v.0.2 is the one that's actually deployed and promoted to production out of the box. We'll go ahead and create this. And what's going to happen is the same pull request is going to be open to onboard this, but to a different environment, to production. The cool thing is that because this is just a centralized place, a portal for you to jump off and get the things done that you need to get done, and because there are automations baked in, you can essentially integrate your IDP with any area. That means that during the process of this onboarding, or at the pull request layer, you could ensure that change request tickets were automatically generated in your system of record. Well, again, let's go check out the pull request. All right, so we've already got an onboarding tag Ollie Adriel hello for pull request open. And as you can see, the label is actually identified with production. So again, all the tests are going to run. There may be a couple tests that are in production that are not in dev, though we ensure that our approach is to keep things very, very consistent. So let me go ahead and review the pull request and approve it if I think it should be deployed. Looks good to me. I'll submit my approval. And again, I'll enable auto merge to be done after all tests pass. And as we can see here, again, it's merged. All tests pass. And so it's actively being deployed to production. Let's go ahead and check out the production deploy. We'll go back into Argo CD, but this time we'll look for Adriel in production. Okay, our application's deployed. We have pushed to production. We got both a code change in, the initial code deployment, a development deployment, and a production deployment, all within just 30-ish minutes. And it's all instrumented sending our data. Okay, so that is what it could look like as a first iteration. In fact, what it can look like based on real world concepts, real world technology, and real world implementation. It does actually look like this. Now, you can always optimize later on. I had a couple onboarding templates that I ran, and I ran them separately. But realistically speaking, you could integrate the starter kit with the onboarding and have it all onboarded right out of the gate, ready to go with all of your policy checks in place. You could even include things like contract integration testing. And instead of having a system of record as it relates to maybe ServiceNow, you could even have various different audit events immediately piped into your observability system for long-standing policy identifications. You know what was deployed at any given point in time, and you know what processes it went through in the supply chain.